Hi, my name's Alison Misen and I'm the marketing manager for CMC Business Advisers. At CMC, we have been helping small business owners for over 30 years to grow and plan for their exit, as well as actually sell the business on their behalf. We've been invited by B4 to share some of this insight into exactly what we do and how we support our clients through every stage of their business journey. So in order to do this, I've actually invited in one of our experienced business advisors, Rupert Beasley, who's going to answer a few questions for us. So as one of CMC's core service offerings, we've actually chosen to focus on the exit planning and selling your business side of things. So I'm going to hand over to Rupert now to briefly introduce himself, and then we'll get into the questions.
Thanks, Alison. Hi, I joined CMC about 8 years ago. I'm based in South Oxfordshire, and like many of us at CMC, have first-hand experience of starting up and running my own business. Over 20 years ago, I started and ran a grounds maintenance business, which I built up to a level of employing about 25 people with a turnover of just under £1 million. Which I did in 10 years, and I successfully sold it in 2011. I'd previously spent the last 30 years in corporate life, primarily working in the banking, insurance, and telecoms industry. But most of us at CMC have owned our own business in a variety of different industries. And one of the main reasons that I joined CMC was that there's a fabulous pool of very experienced advisors who are incredibly supportive and who between us have a great deal of first-hand experience of running a business and have probably made most of the common mistakes. So with our experience, I believe we're well placed to work with owners of small businesses to help them navigate the pitfalls of running a business and help them to achieve their own personal and business goals. So just to summarize, CMC is now in its 31st year, currently with over 360 years worth of business experience between us. We've helped thousands of business owners over the years and sold over £150 million worth of business during that time.
Fantastic. So to start with, can you just explain how you'd work with a client when you're planning for exit, and what are the common obstacles that you tend to come across?
Sure. It's very important to talk to our clients and engage them as early as possible. Many business owners leave exit, sale or succession planning far too late. Our objective is to get all of the owners' hard work in their business as well rewarded as possible for their retirement or whatever they choose to do next. The two most common issues I come across are firstly, that the business is not really in an optimum state to be sold. Just for example, there may be non-operational costs within the accounts, such as property, family vehicles, etc. Or another example where much of the business might be being carried out by the owner themselves, potentially with much of the business and the information actually in the heads of the owner rather than delegated through formal processes. And there are many more examples I could give which can actually reduce the attractiveness of a business when it comes to selling. Secondly, managing the expectations of the owner in terms of the value of their business. It's a common issue, but many owners quite understandably, I think that their business is worth quite a bit more than it actually is. And they do tend to need a bit of a reality check. And this is one of the main reasons to plan as early as possible. Because if the owners have their sights set on a particular sum in order to have a comfortable retirement, but the business is unlikely to realize that value, then there needs to be time to focus on potentially growing the business and time to get it into shape to achieve that value. So in summary, it's really important to plan as early as possible. And I would suggest somewhere between 2 and 3 years in advance or even earlier.
Brilliant. So can you actually explain more about how you would go about valuing an actual business?
Sure, yeah. There are a number of different ways that you can use to get a reasonable idea of value. In the UK, we tend to go for a multiple of earnings of the business. The earnings, namely the EBITDA, similar to the operating profit of the business, is then multiplied to give a value. And this multiple can be anything between 2.5 and 5 or 6 times, or even more in some cases. But that pretty much depends on the type of the business sector, the industry, and the offering itself. You could also look at the market and the sale prices of similar business to get a comparison. But really, the challenge here is to obtain a realistic price, firstly to engage interest in the market, but knowing that you're very unlikely to be able to increase that price once you put it out there. And more to the point, once due diligence has started, if you haven't done enough preparation, any issues found are likely to cause the value to decrease.
Indeed. And what would you do to actually maximise the value of a business?
Again, this is all down to planning for sale. As I've already inferred, once you've gone to market and set expectations of value using a multiple of earnings, the acquirer will actually want to ensure that they're getting the best value of their money, and obviously will want to carry out due diligence on the business and understand exactly what it is that they're buying. So there are many facets that can affect the value. For example, as mentioned, if the owner is deeply entrenched in the business rather than directing the business, that'll obviously be a difficult and expensive replacement, which will be unattractive to the acquirer. The dependency of customers or suppliers on that business. I've got a client whose EBITDA multiple has on paper a business potentially worth 1.5 million. However, looking at their customer portfolio, one of their customers was bringing in well in excess of 80% of their turnover. So it's kind of unlikely that anyone is going to pay for a business with such a risk profile. So we're now working with them to help them dilute the exposure of that customer. The income, for example, if another issue, if the income comes in bits and pieces and is a bit lumpy in terms of cash flow, as opposed to recurring revenue through a subscription-based model or repeat contracts, then there's more consistent cash flow in that example, and that is of greater value as an acquisition. Another issue that can affect value is the liquidity of the business. For example, a purchaser won't want to pay for a business only to find out they've got to pump in more money, working capital, to keep that business going. So in summary, there are many aspects of the business that the owner should really focus on in preparation for sale to make sure that they get that value. Other areas to home in on would be things like the financial status, the scalability of the business, and the uniqueness of their business proposition. All of these can play a part, and it's important to have time to really look at these and set the business out in the best possible way.
Yeah, indeed. So finally, when the business is actually in good shape, it's in a position to sell, what approach do you use to help your client actually sell it?
Yeah, we tend to use a 5-stage approach when selling a business. The preparation for sale, which I've mentioned before, we need to ensure that there's enough time to build in sufficient value in the business and ensure that the business is investment ready. During that time, we'll also help assemble an exit team, which includes corporate lawyers, accountants, and financial advisors. Secondly, the marketing. We'll spend some time building up the marketing material about that business. This will typically be an anonymized one-page article about the business to advertise the sale, but we'll also put together a short brochure, often called the information memorandum, about the business, detailing much more about the business in terms of its history, the financials, the sales prospect and pipeline, the sales and marketing material that business use, employee information, premises details, etc., etc. And this document then goes to prospective buyers once they've shown interest and signed a confidentiality agreement. And in parallel to this, we will look for potential buyers and assess whether this particular sale might be a trade sale or best placed as a management buyout or buy-in, or seen as an investor opportunity.
Yeah.
The third aspect, or the third stage, is to agree the deal with a prospective purchaser. This will be through a heads of terms agreement outlining the deal structure and the terms agreed, subject to stage 4, the most important part, the due diligence. And this is where, if you've done the preparation, it should be straightforward. But the seller must declare everything about the business, warts and all. So disputes, legal issues, HMRC issues, etc. But must be borne in mind that the acquirer will be looking for excuses to reduce the price. And finally, stage 5, the contract. This is usually in the form of a sale and purchase agreement, which in itself can be exhaustive. And such items such as property, pensions, TUPE, minority shareholders, all potentially able to cause quite big problems. So those are the 5 stages. And then there is the post-sale, the continuing business. What's next for the business owner? Are there financial plans in place? Are they required to be still part of the business as part of an earn-out? And hopefully we will have secured as much value out of the business as early and as upfront as possible. So just to recap, selling the business can be quite tricky and can take quite a time. Typically 6 to 9 months if all goes well, and assuming there aren't too many issues along the way. But I guess one of the most important things that we as business advisors also need to help the business owner do is to keep an eye on the business to ensure that they don't take their eye off the ball in terms of their current business and think that they have a sale in the bag and they're ready to hit retirement. Sadly, and I've seen it, a sale can fall through at any time. And if it falls through at the last minute, you want your clients to be able to go back to the market with their business in good shape and try again. However, if they've taken their eye off the ball and the business has slumped, not only are they going to struggle to get a similar offer in future, they may not have a business to sell. So hopefully with planning, we can safely help the business owner secure the best deal for their business. After all, in many instances, this is the first and only time they'll do a business sale, and they'll want to ensure that they get the best reward for all of their hard work that they've put in, usually in a lifetime.
That's a great summary. Thank you very much, Rupert. Some great insight there. So I just want to summarise for everybody 4 key points to take away from this session, really. Firstly, it's essential to leave plenty of time to plan. We suggest between 2 and 5 years, as this will enable you to maximise your business value. Secondly, it takes on average 6 to 9 months to actually sell a business, so set expectations from the outset. Thirdly, we would highly recommend engaging a specialist who really understands the process and knows what they're doing. This will help you maximise your return. And then finally, 4th point, when selling your business, don't take your eye off the ball. Keep focusing on the business throughout the whole process because you don't know what's going to happen. So I appreciate there's a lot of information to absorb there. So if you'd like to find out more, please do reach out for a chat. We've also got some valuable resources for you to use as well. We've got some white papers and checklists available. So we're going to share our details with you now on a slide. Please do take a note of them and get in touch. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thanks, Rupert.